Hello everybody, this is Ella speaking, and I thought I shared a few of the recent pedagogic research related to blended learning with you guys. Uh, these are very recent papers that I've selected for you, and they are discussing the changes happened in their organizations. They all use a large cohort of students, over 300 to 400, and specifically discussing student satisfaction and how they felt about the transition to online and blended form of learning. And they will be discussing what are the ways forward, and whether we can be using blended learning not just for the duration of COVID and the period that we are facing in the next few months, but also perhaps afterwards, and how would our students in the current situation feel about it and what their response were. So hopefully by the end of this short presentation, we have something to think about. The purpose is not convince you this is the way to go, but throwing some ideas at you and let you know that other organizations facing the same things that we are facing, and an opportunity that we can learn from things they have done in their organizations, or things that they have been facing in their organizations, and things that we should perhaps be considering or need to consider if we would like to make things better and improve our service, despite the fact that we are in a rather unprecedented situation currently. Okay, let's get us started then. The COVID-19 story and pandemic affected us since January, February, but mostly hit us around March, mid-March, late March. Various universities decided to close and close their doors to students and staff. This pandemic affected some disciplines more than others. For instance, medical sciences, biomedical sciences, biological sciences, dentistry, nursing, and the students who are studying life sciences have been affected the most, perhaps. And it was not just the closure of the university, but the social distancing, the fact that the students wouldn't be able to interact with their own peers, whether this is communication between their classmates or communication with the senior peer, the lecturer, supervisor, module manager, personal tutor, or the interaction that they needed to learn things for their own discipline. For instance, interacting with patients if they are medical students and not the first year, second, third, fourth year. Or the interaction is needed to learn how to fix a teeth, or how to examine a teeth, how to make a denture. For optometrists, this interaction would be designing a lens, a glass, a pair of glass, and optimizing it on patient's eye. During this pandemic, we all had to adapt very quickly, that even when we look back at some point in future, we might not believe the speed that we actually adjusted ourselves, adapted the new model and mode, and delivered the best possible knowledge transfer that we could. The question is, should we continue doing the same thing, online teaching and learning, or using a blended form of learning in the future, not just for the period of post-COVID, which we are facing in the next few months, but also afterwards. And if we would like to take that route, that path, what we should consider. How can we address the resistance to change among our students, and how can we actually implement this blended learning in our curriculum? Note must be taken that blended learning existed before this COVID situation. And if we look closely at our curriculum in the past, not just few months, but few years and perhaps last 2 decades, we gradually implemented it. It just speeded up the process, COVID situation, COVID pandemic. Let me give you an example. When we provide our lectures on KLE, we have a lecture capture, we have content transfer, and this is not just the reference list we are including or the citation list at the end of slides or at the end of PowerPoint presentation. This is perhaps spoon feeding one by one, downloading papers, putting everything online for students to be conveniently accessing to be able to conveniently accessing these resources and simply just study. Also, I must mention that not all and every universities and medical schools, biological sciences, life sciences has been able to adapt as quickly as we did. Many schools, universities, faculties that my colleagues, my peers are working across the UK and even in the US, they had a golden time missing from the time that the decision making took place till the implementation took place. But University of Kiel did this transition literally within a week, within 5 days, and all of us have had hands-on actively to deliver the best possible knowledge transfer that we possibly could with the amount of resources and technologies that was available to us at the time. Now let us look at the questions that we are facing should we wish to take this road and take this path forward. The major question that we have been asking ourselves in recent meetings, of course, is it enough what we are about to deliver or what we have delivered so far? Is it enough to provide a video lecture? Is it enough to record our lectures? Is it enough to provide a video conferencing every now and then? Is it enough to offer practical activities that are online or using a blended format? Is it enough to provide a boot camp for those practical activities? And we're going to discuss about these things in next few slides and talk about how students feel, most importantly, and how has been recorded and reported the students' response to the changes we have been facing after COVID and even before that when it comes to online learning and teaching as well as blended learning. Another important question is how to maintain that quality of knowledge transfer that we used to, how to adhere with those quality assurance criteria. We certainly need to modify it to make it compatible with the new era of blended learning. How to achieve student satisfaction, not just home students, but actually provide an attractive program that would interest international students, it would interest guest students to come and be our guests for one semester and exchange knowledge, exchange experience in the teaching and learning platform as well as research. Let us talk about those evidence-based papers that I promised to tell you about. The lessons learned from other higher education centers. These are 3 very recent papers post-COVID, as well as, of course, some old papers that I felt they are relevant. The list of references at the end of this presentation is not exhaustive, but I provided a handful of good references that should be easy to follow, should be easy to read, not boring you and not taking too much of your time. The result of these recent studies, however, showed that majority of students in these higher education centers across Europe, at the very least, they would prefer the traditional method of knowledge transfer. Having said that, the students valued the blended learning, kind of valued a combination of traditional and online learning. And this percentage reaches to almost 65%. So it's not too bad. And I believe that by increasing awareness, student awareness, staff awareness, we can reach even higher percentages among our students. I'm not aware of any statistics across Kiel, different faculties or schools, but if we had, perhaps we would be more or less at a similar level of satisfaction when it comes to our students, of course. Having said that, this is not a simple report. When we divide the students who are talking about their practical courses, their hands-on activities, medical students who needed that peer-to-peer interaction or interaction with patients, students in dentistry, they needed that interaction to actually have hands-on, maybe create a denture, maybe examine a tooth or something. They felt less satisfied, and only 43% of them felt that online mode might actually help them, or a combination of traditional and online mode might actually help them. So this is the area that we need to work on, and we will discuss in next few slides how we can work on it to improve quality assurance, to improve quality of knowledge transfer, as well as allowing the students to gain experience relevant to their disciplines, to help them with successful graduation, to help them with successful job hunting, or advancing their career education in higher education, as well as industry or any sector that they would like to work in. Another important statistical report on student satisfaction when it comes to interaction with their peers, particularly senior peers, they clearly mentioned the whopping majority of 85% of students mentioned that they didn't have that level of effective and efficient communication with their lecturers, with their module managers, with their senior laboratory technicians, with their personal tutors. And this is again another good report for us to reflect, to see what is happening in other organizations and learn from their lessons and plan accordingly to see if we could actually enhance our students' experience in this peer-to-peer interaction communication as well. When it comes to blended learning, what are the things we need to consider? As I mentioned before, blended learning is nothing new, but perhaps it's kind of accelerated in the past few months implementing it. The major questions we are facing is that should we limit this blended learning or online knowledge transfer to the period of COVID and post-COVID? Or should we use this methods of knowledge transfer and information transfer and teaching our students in a blended learning format and a blended format or blended curriculum in the future as well, in the era of post-COVID and afterwards? When it comes to implementing it, we need to ask serious questions from ourselves. Whether we should consider our students' feelings. We have already talked about few statistics in previous slide. Should we consider our student satisfaction? Should we consider our academic staff? Not just academic staff satisfaction, but also their skills and training, because it is a new era and we are facing rapid changes in technologies, rapid changes in the modes and methods of delivery, rapid changes in quality assurances, because the quality assurance team needs to adapt with this new era of blended learning as well. Another major question to ask would be, should we treat all of our students equally, or should we tailor-made our services? And that doesn't mean discriminating anyone, by no means, but actually helping everyone to achieve their potential, to reach their potential and achieve their goals and succeed in their education, their future career, and whatever they would like to do. And we're going to discuss about it, how it could be implemented. Let us pause for 10 seconds and again look back at some data. We have been discussing about laboratory boot camps, how we can offer practical sessions to our students. And in one of these studies, a large cohort surveys, a student mentioned that online labs and clinical practices, the tutorial that actually switched to online mode was not really efficient. Pardon me. And they preferred the traditional ones. And this is about like 82%, so whopping majority of the students. I'm not aware of any survey done at our medical school, but if we ask our students even in life sciences, it would be the same, more or less, respond. And the reason I put this statistic here, because to show you that we are not alone in this boat, we are all in the same situation, and other organizations are also suffering from the same effects that COVID-19 had on us and the rapid transition to the online mode. The reason I put this laboratory thing on this slide is to emphasize that not all disciplines would be affected the same. The students who are studying history, literature, languages, or geography to some extent, they can easily use the online mode. Although having a laboratory, having peer-to-peer interactions, having interactions with their senior peers would always be beneficial. But what I'm trying to say is to find a way to maximize the usage of our space, resources, spaces in laboratories to actually provide a better service to those students who need the most. Because at the end of the day, we cannot train a good dentist if they never had sufficient time to actually play with the tooth or design the denture. We cannot help individuals to graduate in medicine, become a good practitioner, become a good medic, if they had very limited opportunity to examine a patient, to actually practice CPR. We cannot train and prepare technical staff among our next generation neuroscientists, biological scientists, life scientists, researchers, if they have never had a chance to have hands-on to work with neuronal cells, cancer cells, or exploring the nature to find wildlife, to actually even hold an animal. So it is explainable if certain group of students are not satisfied, and that's where the stratification and personalization of teaching and learning curriculum comes in. Blended learning and student acceptance. We talked about students' dissatisfaction mainly and their concerns, but let us talk about some positives as well. Based on these recent surveys after COVID, the students are understanding the need to switch suddenly to online mode. So they comprehend the situation perfectly. Majority of them, however, would like to switch back as soon as possible, and that time is as soon as may be. Some of the students felt that perhaps we could use a combination of these online and traditional mode of knowledge transfer even after the pandemic. And that's a good space and place to start thinking and planning. One way of planning to increase students' acceptance would be personalizing, stratifying. We briefly mentioned how. If we want to expand this bit, it could be a lecture itself, but when it comes to perhaps BAME students, we are thinking about decolonizing curriculum. What can we do to allow our students who are in this group to succeed and reach their potential? So perhaps the answer would be tailor-making their education for their needs. If we have a group of students with disabilities, another group with hidden disabilities, how we could tailor-made to allow these students to succeed as well. And this applies to students who are actually doing well in a relative term. So they are in the top 10 percentile, top 20 percentile. If we tailor-made our teaching and blended curriculum to help those students as well, we would allow those students reach their potential too, isn't it? At the moment, because we are trying to treat everyone equally, it's a good approach, but students who are actually doing well in the top 20%, top 10% of classroom, they find it boring. They cannot thrive. They cannot reach their potential the way they should, the way they deserve to. The students who are in the bottom 20%, 25%, they are struggling, they are behind, they are under pressure, constant pressure. And this is the area that we actually personalize it at Kiel. We provide one-to-one interaction with the personal tutor. We provide tailor-made support for their study. And we do our best, don't we? But how about using this personalized format of blended learning, online learning, mixture of traditional and online, and when it's needed to personalize it in large cohorts. When we are dealing with 300, 400 students, we stratify our students and provide a curriculum that benefit all, but based on their needs. And this by no means is defying the equal opportunity. It is in the same platform, but we use different ways, and we use this. It is going to be challenging, particularly when it comes to quality assurance and quality assurance of assessments. But we would be allowing all of our students to enjoy, be happy, and be successful. We talked about the student acceptance and the importance of it when it comes to blended learning and providing this type of service or online teaching. And we talked about the important point that students felt, particular students at medical school, biomedical school, life sciences, dentistry, nursing, that online mode is not enough and they prefer the traditional mode. Having said that, these students actually acknowledge that if online form of knowledge transfer and tutorial is provided as a supplementary thing, would actually help them, and they quite liked it. But how could we increase students' awareness about the benefits of blended learning in their future curriculum design? How we can actually increase their acceptance, the level of acceptance when it comes to blended learning and blended teaching. One of the ways we can enhance their understanding, not just perhaps the students, but also staff, is by raising awareness, talking about these issues, talking about personalization of the curriculum, talking about the stratification of curriculum, ways that we can help them better, and also linking current curriculum particularly if it is offered in a blended format with their future employability. Let us pause for 2 minutes and expand on this because this is important. In the past few months, majority of us had to switch very quickly in the education sector, in technical sectors, in even medical and dentistry. A lot of consultation these days, not just during the COVID, even before that. It has started a few years ago. We have telehealth, so a lot of consultations happening online or via phone conversation. So you explain to your GP and or log in online. It is more advanced in America, I must admit, but we have started it, we have invested on it. NHS Digital supposed to be delivered in England by 2005, wasn't successful. The next date was 2015. It wasn't successful and failed, and it grew rapidly during the COVID, and it is impressive. Meanwhile, Scotland started later than UK, but they have the NHS Digital in place. Their pharma is online, so you could order or renew prescription online before it was established and working properly in England. So these things are happening. In our laboratory, if an instrument broke down, I clearly remember in the past 10-15 years, it's not just the education sector that we even trained ourselves online or taught our students online using blackboards and other information systems to help us with the knowledge transfer. But even in the technical technology and technical support staff and related activities, if an instrument mass spec is breaking down, if the EM machine is breaking down, if the MRI machine is breaking down, we pick up a phone and call the company. They talk to us an hour or so, guide us for a few hours, send us email, pamphlets, brochures, send us a step-by-step troubleshooting, talk to us the day after. Again, could be sometimes video conferencing, could be asking us take a picture from the screen. These are all blended communication, isn't it? And after we have been exhausting all the ways and the system is not booting, so mass spec is just providing nonsense and the EM is not, the system is not booting, or MRI machine making a funny noise, then the technician starts packing their bags and traveling from Cambridge to come to Manchester or from York to Kiel to actually fix the machine. So by bringing these real life examples to our students, we actually tell them that this form of blended activity has been there. You have been using it and it's going to be there. By learning these methods, tools, and making yourself familiar, showing flexibility, you're actually enhancing your employability, enhancing your skills, transferable skills that employers are looking for. So this is another way we can raise awareness, by talking about the link between the current curriculums, if it is in blended format, and their future career. When you're delivering the knowledge transfer online, the assessment, subjective or objective, of subjective and objective outcomes should also be in online format and blended format as well. And that's the area, again, the quality assurance team needs to work very hard to create that standards for us. But the main benefit of it is not just for students to be able to adapt themselves with these new technologies, and for us as well to deliver the best type of examination that could be happening online. I can give you real life examples, organizations and exams that are taking place online without any issues. They don't need to give 9 to 5 time for an exam, but that would remain for another time, that we have more time to discuss and bring more examples to the field. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm just adding the fact that switching to the online mode of assessment, if it is quality assured, it would save us as lecturers an enormous amount of time. In the past 3-4 months, we have been marking over 300-400 essays. And this is the golden time that we need to read more literature, to bring our presentations, our lectures up to date. This is the golden time that we can learn new techniques and technology to actually implement the blended learning methods of knowledge transfer better, to lift up our organizations, our faculties, our schools, our discipline, and compete with other providers, with other service providers when it comes to higher education. And by switching this to the blended format, online format, we would free up a lot of time. It would be again synchronous. It would not be subjective as much as it is sometimes now, because the machine would correct the words, pick up the words that are correct, or check the answers, and it's gonna be amazing in a way, but that's just one opinion. Having said that, quality assurance is the key. Following evidence-based literatures, learning from other organizations is also the key. Students' voice is the key to incorporate their thoughts and feelings. When we are designing a curriculum, I deliberately use the bold S and put the apostrophe afterwards, because it's important to have all the students' input. We do have a student's voice in every organization's higher education centers that I work. We do have a student's voice, one representative. But between you and me, a lot of us experience that the student's voice is sometimes, not always, sometimes it's a voice of one person or handful of person. And this handful of person, we hear their voice over and over again. How about using those one-to-one sessions or tutorial sessions or face-to-face activities that we need to deliver, to have these tutorials to ask all of our students? Give voice to those who are not talking enough. Give voice to those paying students, so those students with disabilities or hidden disabilities that are usually shy to talk about their feelings or their understanding. Sometimes great ideas are coming out of their mouth and we can think about it, put a stare on it, scrutinize it, and then even use it in the design of our curriculum. And make sure that by looking at the pedagogic research and the findings in other organizations, and by sharing our own findings and student surveys results in the public platform, create a community to work together with other higher education centers and universities, not just across the UK, in England and Scotland and Wales, but also across the globe where applicable. We can always learn something from a university in China or Japan, someone who is teaching something interesting or using an interesting software in Australia or in America or in Europe. We talked about the student acceptance. What about our academics? Have we prepared our academic staff and support staff to be blended curriculum ready? What can we do if we would like to implement it? One way is by looking constantly at pedagogy reports within the organizations, within the UK and worldwide. As I mentioned before, if you would like to produce and provide an attractive curriculum and program to attract not just home students but international students, we should demonstrate a level of competitiveness. We should still work on our student satisfaction. And this could happen only and perhaps only by increasing awareness and talking to them. But talking about the importance of our students' success, not just during their education and the period they are spending with us, but afterwards when it comes to their employability. By planning ahead, by working as a team. And I cannot emphasize enough how teamwork is important, particularly when we are making a major change and we need to support one another. I also need to emphasize that not one size fits all. What suits a university, a higher education center in the UK might not suit individuals in Japan or Australia. And what suits students and staff at Kiel would not or might not be suitable for students in York or Manchester. So therefore, although we learn from one another, we look at the pedagogic research outputs, that doesn't mean that we should blindly accept everything and put it into practice. But we need to reflect on it, think about it, tweak it, make it applicable, and constantly review and revise our approach. We need to invest on that rapid adaptability and value it, and also enhance the skill of our staff by supporting them, attending courses that they need, providing as much as possible. And I know it's economic crunch time, and we need to be considerate more than ever when it comes to purchasing books and providing our reference list, but it is achievable. And by doing all these things, we can create that happy and active and engaging learning environment that we used to have before the COVID situation. It's just the platform that has changed and needs a little bit of working. Let us give ourselves another 10-20 seconds pause and reflect at some of the survey's output. The students mentioned that the communication between themselves and the laboratory instructors was much better during the pre-COVID, during the traditional face-to-face laboratory practicals. So this is again another lesson learned as for us as a staff, as technical staff, support staff, that if this happened to other organizations, first of all, we need to think, would our students feel the same way? More or less, I bet they would. Perhaps they are more happier and satisfied when it comes to providing feedbacks or things that we could have done online, but when it comes to their practical and laboratory and the skills they needed to learn, maybe they suffered a bit more. So this is the area, again, we need to reflect on and think of how we can actually improve it and enhance our students' experience when it comes to interaction with their senior management and leaderships in their own discipline. What is the road ahead? Based on the pedagogic research so far, based on our own experience, we have been in this together, it looks like that we are moving away from the classroom, from the traditional knowledge transfer style, one way or another. The question this presentation was putting forward is, should we switch completely, or should we treat all disciplines equally? Implemented learning, when it comes to it, and combining online with traditional face-to-face knowledge transfer methods, has its own benefits, we talked about it, and it has its own disadvantages, and again depends on disciplines and situations that our students are in and our staff ability to deliver it. We can talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this mode again for an hour or so, but let us close the talk by highlighting another benefit of this mode, that perhaps blended learning would encourage students to engage with active learning more than before, things that we have been struggling to achieve in the past at least 12 years in the UK that I've been teaching students, whether they are first year, second year, or third year neuroscience or biological sciences. It was hard to convince them, or it has been hard to convince them that active learning is the way forward. But by raising awareness and perhaps by using this blended learning format of knowledge transfer, we can achieve it in future. Investing in quality assurance is also a key. Investing in teamwork and being aware that this is the area that we all need to work together to succeed is also the key to succeed. We need to pay attention to the satisfaction of our students, but at the same time to the satisfactions and ability of our staff as well, and support them as well. And perhaps we go back to the importance of team working. And we all have to be mindful and remain mindful when it comes to employability of our students and the staff, when it comes to collaboration nationally and internationally and learning from one another. Not just looking at pedagogic reports, but implementing, tweaking things, thinking about it and modifying to make it fit. And again, I emphasize that not one size fits all. These are just suggestions. These are just materials to put together to raise awareness, to enhance our understanding of things that are happening around us. And it would be good to compare and contrast with what we have at Kiel and among our students. And it would be good to hear from you as well. Hopefully you found the presentation interesting. This was a chance, an opportunity for us to share some knowledge, some pedagogic research, very recent one, as well as some old one that are relevant to us. And we can hopefully benefit from their findings, their reports, the awareness they have been raising, or the level of the student satisfaction, how it's going on elsewhere. So we have something to compare ourselves with and not beat ourselves up because students are not happy, or we receive here and there email that the students felt that the online mode was not really okay. It's everywhere, and hopefully we learned a few things, and this meant to actually allow us to communicate, allow us to think about the situation and options we have. This should be a platform to just exchange either knowledge or thoughts and communicate with our senior management team, of course, via this platform, as well as junior team. This should hopefully be a way and path to take on forwards rather than just one-off presentation or one-off report. So I'm hoping in the next presentation to provide you some information about the delivery of third year projects. And this is going to be based on workshops I've been attending in the past few months, various universities across the UK as well as US, wherever it was available to tap into their knowledge pool and experiences and expertise, watching webinars, joining conference calls and so on. So hopefully as soon as I get a chance, I can't promise it now because I have so many deadlines in front of me, but as soon as I get a chance, I would promise to share those knowledge with you as well. And please feel free to discuss, to chat, pose questions. You can always knock on the MS Team door. We don't have a physical office, but that shouldn't stop us from communicating. And if you would like to encourage our junior peers or students to communicate with one another and with us, we should start doing it ourselves as well. And we are learning. We are in the same boat all together. And I'm happy to take on any criticism, any comments and suggestions as well. With this brief, I leave it to you guys. Keep up the good job and stay safe. And that's about it. Over and out. Bye-bye. Oh, of course, I had to re-record this because there was some noise going on when I listened it. So it is pretty time consuming, I assure you, these recording lectures. And yeah, it's very time consuming, not fun.